The cruel truth is, people never realize the value of someone until that person is no longer within their reach. And when it finally hits them, it's too late. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly how women start missing the man they once took for granted, and why that regret comes when they least expect it. One of the most underrated blessings in a relationship is consistency. In the beginning, it feels natural, almost expected. When a man calls every morning just to check if she had breakfast, when he texts at night to make sure she reached home safely, when he notices even the slightest change in her tone and asks, "Are you okay?" These things feel ordinary at the time. But the reality is, consistency is extraordinary because it requires effort every single day. Most people can impress for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, but only someone deeply invested will show up again and again without being asked, without keeping score, without expecting anything in return. And this consistency, when taken for granted, becomes invisible. She doesn't even realize how much it meant until the day it disappears. At first, she doesn't notice the absence. She might even enjoy the silence, thinking, "Finally, I have space. Finally, I don't have to answer every call or respond to every message." She convinces herself that his care was too much, that maybe he was too available, too predictable, too present. But time has a way of revealing truth. The silence that once felt like freedom slowly starts to feel like loneliness. The unanswered calls, the missing good morning texts, the absence of his constant check-ins create a vacuum that no one else seems willing to fill. Suddenly, what she labeled as too much feels like not enough. And that's when the realization begins. She misses the consistency she once dismissed. Because here's what consistency really is. It's emotional security. It's not just about messages or calls. It's about the invisible reassurance that someone out there is thinking of you, caring for you, making you a priority even in the midst of their busy life. Consistency is not about grand gestures. It's about the little habits that build a sense of safety. When a woman no longer receives that consistency, she starts to notice how empty the small moments feel. Walking into the house and not hearing his voice asking how her day was. Opening her phone and not seeing his name light up the screen. Facing struggles and not having the steady comfort of his presence. She realizes that the consistency she once brushed aside was in fact the foundation of her emotional balance. And the irony is that she often doesn't notice this until she experiences inconsistency from others. When she moves on and meets someone new, she expects the same level of care, but she doesn't get it. The new person might be charming, might be exciting, but they are not steady. They don't check on her when she's quiet. They don't notice the details. They don't remember the small things. That's when the comparison begins in her mind, not because she wants to, but because she can't help it. She remembers how he never failed to be there, how he noticed things before she even said them, how his consistency made her feel valued. And in that comparison, regret begins to grow. The absence of consistent care also teaches her something painful about human psychology. We only realize the weight of constant effort when it's no longer given. When care becomes absent, it highlights every moment it was once present. She replays the memories in her head, the way he always reminded her to eat, the way he double-checked if her car had fuel, the way he never let her fall asleep without making sure she felt loved. These were not small things. These were the invisible threads holding the relationship together. But because they were so consistent, they felt ordinary. And ordinary things, when removed, create the biggest emptiness. The silence of a missing routine is louder than words. It's not about one missed call or one forgotten text. It's about the sudden disappearance of a rhythm she had unknowingly synchronized her life with. She used to feel safe knowing he would always be there. And when that safety is stripped away, she's forced to face the uncomfortable reality. Consistency is love in its purest form, and losing it feels like losing the ground beneath your feet. One of the greatest illusions in relationships is that emotional safety will always be there. When a woman is with a man who truly values her, she doesn't just receive love, she receives a safe space, a place where her soul can breathe without fear of judgment. She may not recognize it in the moment because emotional safety isn't loud or dramatic. It's not flowers, it's not luxury, it's not words that make headlines. Emotional safety is quiet. It's in the way he listens when she talks about something that matters to her, even if it doesn't matter to anyone else. It's in the way he never dismisses her feelings, never calls her weak for crying, never mocks her for being vulnerable. It's in the way he shows up when she's at her lowest, not with solutions, but with presence. That kind of safety is invisible until it's gone. When a man withdraws his emotional presence, she feels it in ways she can't explain. Suddenly, she doesn't have that safe corner to run to when the world overwhelms her. She doesn't have that one person who always seemed to understand her silence, who could sense something was wrong even without words. She doesn't have that shield against the chaos of life. At first, she thinks she's fine. She tells herself she's strong, independent, that she doesn't need anyone to hold her emotional baggage. But slowly, the cracks start to show. Late at night, when the loneliness creeps in, she realizes the world feels colder without him. She misses the way she could pour her heart out without fear of being used against her. She misses the freedom of being vulnerable without being punished for it. That is when the loss of emotional safety begins to haunt her. The painful truth is most women don't realize the rarity of a man who provides emotional safety. Many confuse attention with care, flattery with love, and charm with depth. But emotional safety has nothing to do with flattery. It has everything to do with consistency and trust. When a man is gone, she often tries to replace him with someone else, hoping to feel the same comfort. Yet what she finds is different. The new person may say the right things, may create moments of passion, may bring excitement, but he doesn't provide that safe space. Instead of being able to express freely, she feels like she has to wear a mask, carefully choosing her words, pretending to be stronger than she feels, hiding parts of herself to avoid being judged. That contrast makes her miss the man she once took for granted. Emotional safety is not only about being heard, it's about being accepted without conditions. It's about knowing that even on her worst days, when she's moody, irritated, or broken, he won't throw her flaws back in her face. It's about knowing she can be imperfect and still be loved. Once that assurance is gone, insecurity takes its place. She starts questioning herself, doubting her worth, overthinking her emotions. And while she once felt protected under his presence, she now feels exposed to a world that doesn't handle her softness with care. That shift is not just external. It shakes her from the inside, leaving her with a hollow ache that no material thing can heal. And then come the memories, the reminders of how safe she once felt. She remembers how he noticed the tremble in her voice and asked gently what was wrong. She remembers how he stayed up with her during her breakdowns, never rushing her healing, never minimizing her pain. She remembers how he defended her when others tried to belittle her, how he stood as a wall between her and a world that often felt cruel. These flashbacks are what make the absence of emotional safety unbearable. Because once you've experienced being seen, truly seen, and then you lose it, no amount of surface level affection can ever compensate for it. What stings the most is that she may not have even acknowledged it while she had it. She may have thought it was normal that every man provides that kind of safety. But reality teaches her otherwise. Very few men can hold a woman's heart without crushing it, listen to her chaos without trying to control it, and create an environment where she feels more at home in his presence than she does anywhere else. Losing that, even if she never valued it before, becomes one of the deepest regrets she carries. One of the greatest mistakes people make in relationships is assuming that effort is automatic, that it doesn't cost anything, that it's just what someone is supposed to do. When a man gives, he often gives silently. He sacrifices his time, his energy, his comfort, not because he has to, but because he wants to. And because his effort comes so steadily, so naturally, it becomes invisible. She doesn't realize the weight he carries to keep her life lighter. She doesn't notice the countless little adjustments he makes so she can be at ease. She doesn't see the compromises he makes, the battles he fights behind closed doors, the dreams he postpones just to make sure she feels secure. And because she doesn't see it, she assumes it will always be there until the day it isn't. When his effort finally fades, the absence feels like a shock. Suddenly, she starts noticing all the things that used to happen without her asking, the texts that reminded her of important details, the way he handled problems before they reached her, the way he shielded her from stress. All of it disappears. She begins to understand that those things were not automatic. They were choices, daily choices he made to prioritize her. And the painful realization sets in. She never thanked him enough, never acknowledged enough, never truly valued the countless efforts that kept the relationship alive. Effort is silent until it stops, and when it stops, the silence screams. There's a kind of blindness that comes with routine. When someone gives continuously, we stop seeing it as effort and start seeing it as expectation. She expected him to check on her, expected him to show up, expected him to adjust his life around her needs. And in that expectation, she forgot that not every man would do what he did. It is only after he steps back, only after he stops showing up, that she begins to compare. She looks around and sees how rare his effort truly was. The new people in her life don't go the extra mile. They don't remember the little things. They don't sacrifice their comfort for hers. And it's in those comparisons that the value of his effort finally comes into focus. The truth about effort is that it is love in action. Words are easy, emotions come and go, but consistent effort requires discipline, selflessness, and intention. His effort wasn't just about what he did, it was about what it represented. Every small act was him saying, "You matter. I see you. I'm choosing you." And now, without those acts, she realizes she misses not just the gestures, but the message behind them. She misses being chosen in silence every single day. She misses being cared for without having to ask. She misses the quiet proof of love that effort embodies. What hurts most is that she can recall moments when she dismissed his effort, moments when she called him too much, when she rolled her eyes at his reminders, when she treated his sacrifices as insignificant. She can remember how she took credit for the stability he created, how she assumed she deserved the comfort he built, how she overlooked the weight of his responsibility. And now, without his effort, she feels the difference. She feels the chaos he once protected her from. She feels the discomfort he once absorbed. She feels the instability he once carried on his shoulders just to keep her world balanced. The loss of his effort reveals how much he gave, and that revelation is a wound that keeps reopening. Effort is the kind of gift that only becomes visible in absence. It's like air. You don't notice it until you can't breathe. And when she finally realizes that his efforts were never guaranteed, that they were never owed, but were freely given from a place of love, the weight of her neglect presses down on her. She begins to replay the past in her head, wishing she had thanked him more, wishing she had noticed more, wishing she had valued him when he was right there. But wishing does not bring back effort once it's withdrawn. And that's the hardest lesson she learns, the value of his effort, only after it's gone. Respect is one of those things that often goes unnoticed when it's present, but becomes painfully loud when it's gone. Many women underestimate the quiet strength of a man who treats them with dignity, who holds them in high regard even when disagreements arise, who never lowers his tone to humiliate them, who never uses their vulnerabilities against them. They assume respect is standard, something every man offers, something they'll always have access to, but respect is not standard. It is rare, it is precious, and when it disappears, it leaves behind a void that cuts deeper than the loss of affection. A man who gives genuine respect creates a sense of worth within her that she doesn't even realize he is building. He uplifts her without needing recognition. He values her presence without conditions, and he honors her place in his life without constantly reminding her. Yet in the blindness of comfort, she may treat his respect as ordinary. The mistake she makes is thinking that respect is automatic. She confuses his patience with weakness, his forgiveness with desperation, his composure with lack of options. She overlooks the fact that it takes immense strength for a man to consistently respect someone, especially when he feels hurt, unappreciated, or ignored. Instead of appreciating that restraint, she begins to push boundaries, test limits, and act as though he will tolerate anything simply because he loves her. But every man has a threshold. Respect, once ignored, begins to erode. And when he finally withdraws it, not in anger, but in silence, she feels the weight of her choices. Suddenly, the man who once gave her dignity no longer prioritizes her presence, no longer shields her image, no longer defends her when others criticize. That absence of respect is jarring, and it forces her to see how much she lost by dismissing it. What strikes her the hardest is when she starts comparing him with others. When she interacts with new people, she notices how easily they cross boundaries, how little regard they have for her comfort, how they interrupt her, dismiss her opinions, or make her feel small. That is when she remembers the man who always listened, who never belittled her, who made her feel valued even in disagreement. The contrast becomes unbearable because she realizes that what she once thought was normal was, in reality, extraordinary. And that extraordinary gift is something she no longer has access to. It's a delayed awakening, a painful recognition that respect was the greatest form of love he ever offered her, and she only learned its worth when it was no longer directed her way. The respect that comes too late is often accompanied by regret. She begins to recall moments when he showed her more honor than she deserved, times when he kept her secrets safe, times when he protected her reputation even when she disrespected his. She remembers how he stayed composed during arguments, how he never allowed outsiders to interfere in their private matters, how he carried himself with integrity no matter what situation they were in. These memories sting because she realizes she should have been humbled by his respect, not entitled to it. But at the time, she failed to see it. Only now, in his absence, does she understand that respect is the foundation of stability, and losing it is far more devastating than losing affection. What makes this realization even more painful is the permanence of it. Once a man who values himself decides that his respect has been wasted, he rarely gives it back. He might forgive, he might even communicate politely, but the sacred space of genuine regard is gone. And when she finally feels the weight of that distance, she starts to see how careless she was with something priceless. She starts to measure every man she meets against the one she lost, not because she wants to, but because deep down she knows she once had something uncommon, something pure, something that cannot be replicated. That is the cruel nature of respect. It is often recognized only in hindsight, and by then, the chance to honor it is already gone. Memory is the cruelest companion when it comes to lost relationships. A woman may convince herself that she has moved on, that she is strong, that she doesn't miss him, that she is better off without the man she once overlooked. She may even distract herself with new people, new places, new habits, but memory has a way of breaking through those defenses. It shows up uninvited, unannounced, triggered by the smallest and most unexpected things. A song playing in the background while she shops, the scent of a cologne she walks past, the taste of a dish he once made her try. Suddenly, without warning, she is transported back to moments she thought she had buried. These emotional flashbacks are not just memories. They are reminders of everything she once had and failed to value. The power of these flashbacks lies in their unpredictability. She cannot control when they come, and she cannot silence them when they arrive. One moment she feels fine, and the next her heart sinks as her mind replays the image of his smile, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his presence. She begins to realize that certain parts of her are permanently imprinted by him. Even if she tries to deny it, she cannot erase the fact that he was part of her everyday life. His words, his gestures, his energy, these things became woven into her memories, and now they return in fragments, cutting her with the sharpness of regret. What makes these flashbacks so tormenting is not just the memory of him, but the awareness that she mishandled it. She doesn't just remember his love, she remembers how she dismissed it. She doesn't just remember his patience, she remembers how she tested it. She doesn't just remember his presence, she remembers how she took it for granted. Each memory, instead of comforting her, now comes as a sting of guilt. She realizes that the very moments she is cherishing in her mind today were the same ones she overlooked back then. And that contradiction is what fuels the cycle of regret. There is also an emotional contrast in these flashbacks. When she compares the tenderness she felt in those moments with the coldness of her current reality, the memories hurt more. She remembers how he used to notice her silence and ask if she was okay. And then she looks around and sees that no one else notices. She remembers how he celebrated her smallest victories as if they were monumental. And then she compares it with people today who barely acknowledge her efforts. She remembers how he could calm her storms with just his words, and then she feels the emptiness of having no one who provides that kind of reassurance anymore. These comparisons intensify the weight of the flashbacks, making her miss not only him but also the version of herself she was when she was with him. Flashbacks are cruel because they often come during solitude. In the quiet of the night, when the distractions fade, her mind drifts to the way he looked at her, the way he made her laugh at her lowest points, the way he believed in her when no one else did. She starts scrolling through old pictures, reading old messages, listening to songs they once shared, and every piece of that past feels alive again. But instead of warmth, it now brings ache. It reminds her that time cannot be rewound, that people cannot be summoned back once they decide to leave, that opportunities for gratitude do not return once they are missed. The most devastating part of emotional flashbacks is that they never fully stop. Even years later, long after she thinks she has healed, they resurface. She might be living a seemingly stable life, but the wrong trigger can pull her back into that state of longing. It is because emotional connections carve themselves into the soul, and unlike material possessions, they cannot simply be discarded. She may replace his presence, but she cannot replace the way he made her feel. And those feelings, preserved in her subconscious, return again and again to remind her of what she lost lost, and more painfully of how carelessly she lost it. One of the most common mistakes after losing someone valuable is believing that the emptiness can be filled by simply finding someone else. It is the illusion of substitution, the idea that if one person leaves, another can easily take their place. Many women, after taking a man for granted and watching him walk away, try to escape the pain of his absence by seeking replacements. At first, it feels like a solution. New faces, new conversations, new moments of distraction give her temporary relief. She tells herself she's fine, that she's moving forward, that she doesn't need him anymore. But over time, reality begins to set in. She realizes that while replacements may fill the silence, they cannot fill the void, because what she lost was not just a man, but a connection that was deeply unique, one that cannot be copied or recreated. Replacements fail because they lack the foundation of history. They do not know her the way he did. They do not understand her patterns, her triggers, her unspoken language. She finds herself explaining parts of herself that never needed explanation before. She notices how the new people don't remember the small details, how they don't pay attention to the things he naturally picked up on, how they don't sense her mood shifts the way he did. Every new interaction becomes a comparison she never wanted to make. And with every comparison, she realizes that what she had was irreplaceable. It's not that new people are unworthy, it's that they are not him. The most painful realization comes when she starts craving the depth he provided. Replacements can offer excitement, but they rarely offer stability. They can bring passion, but not necessarily patience. They may charm her in the beginning, but they don't bring the same level of security, loyalty, or consistency he once gave. And in those moments when she feels unseen, misunderstood, or neglected, she is reminded of the man who gave those things effortlessly. She remembers how he anticipated her needs without her having to voice them, how he noticed her silence before she could explain it, how he supported her even when she had nothing to give in return. That depth is not easily found again, and no matter how many replacements she tries, the void remains unhealed. Another reason replacements don't heal is because they are often sought from a place of desperation rather than love. When someone is used as a bandage for emotional wounds, they can never truly be appreciated for who they are. She realizes that no matter how much she tries to pour herself into someone new, she is still carrying the shadow of the man she lost. She laughs, but the laughter feels empty. She smiles, but her heart doesn't align. She goes on dates, but in the quiet moments, her mind drifts back to him. The presence of replacements only highlights the depth of her longing. Instead of erasing his memory, they sharpen it. Time deepens this realization further. Months, maybe even years later, she looks back and sees that none of the replacements ever matched the bond she had with him. She may have filled her days with distractions, but the nights still feel heavy. She may have surrounded herself with people, but the loneliness of not having him remains. She may have tried to convince herself that someone else could make her forget, but forgetting never came. Because replacements can cover the surface, but they cannot heal the root. The heart knows the difference between genuine connection and temporary distraction. And eventually she learns the hardest truth. Some people are not replaceable. You can find company, but not the same comfort. You can find attraction, but not the same depth. You can find attention, but not the same devotion. What he gave her cannot be duplicated because it wasn't just about what he did. It was about who he was. And when she realizes that, when she finally accepts that replacements will never heal the wound of losing a man she once took for granted, the weight of regret becomes heavier than the loneliness she tried so hard to escape.